The Chinese nation and our new democratic socialist way of life is under the threat of the reactionary Pacific Defense Treaty Organization, an alliance that consists of everyone standing in the way of our well-being, no matter ideology, from right-wing and neoconservatives in India and Australia to authoritarian communists in Vietnam and Laos. And after Xi Jinping's loss against Taiwan, our army is weak, meaning the PTDO has a real chance of destroying everything we have built up. Thankfully, with the economic marvel of digital communism, which after an increase in our industrial development led to positive growth and government surpluses, we have the resources to begin rebuilding and reforming our military force to deal with our growing enemies. We will immediately begin conducting exercises, plan division reorganization and start the long path of reforming the PLA. Starting by analyzing our loss in our first modern war, that against Taiwan, we will ensure that we don't commit the same mistakes and gain complete understanding of modern warfare. At the same time, we also started turning our economy towards war, as after our long focus on our civilian economy, Japan and India have together doubled our military production. Thanks to our civilian focus and our AI economic minister, we will quickly catch up though, so production won't have to be our main focus. Instead, we can put our full focus on preparing the PLA for the upcoming war. We started by raising the standards of our training programs and looking into reforming our special forces, who will play an important role in areas not suited for motorized warfare. Taking inspiration from the Russian VDV, we put forward plans to create our own paratrooper divisions, and we redesigned the division composition of our current special forces to make them fit for modern warfare. Following this, we put our focus on the rest of the army to create the next generation army, both in equipment and composition. On the composition part, we restructured our divisions, creating one main tank division which will conduct our biggest offensives, one smaller version which will support our motorized divisions who will be our main division, and lastly starting to redraw our marines. On the equipment front, we started several research projects, like Project Flash for laser rifles. And since our main battle tanks will play such an important role, we finished development and started production on Generation 3 tanks, while also starting to research on the next generation. During all these reforms, tensions in the world had reached new heights as the reformed Soviet Union and our partial friends in Russia declared war on Ukraine, causing a huge war between the CSTO and NATO. While we won't send any help to the Soviets, we will observe the war to learn from modern warfare, and instead, now that the world is distracted, send a small volunteer force of our special forces to South Africa, where the economic freedom fighters have long tried defeating the Cape Emergency government. As our 3 volunteer forces arrived on the front, we immediately started an offensive, which started out quite slow. But by using everything we had learned during our reforms, we were soon able to break through and advance freely to the west. This way we could capture 3 provinces until getting stopped at a river, forcing us to look elsewhere for our offensive. And this elsewhere was past the river with a push southwards to encircle Port Elizabeth. Despite the mountainous terrain, we could break through and succeed with the operation, but with the port highly protected, we weren't able to capture it. Instead, we turned to the west, where we together with friendly forces encircled Cape Town, splitting the Cape Junta in 3. Some months later, only Cape Town was left, which we together with the economic freedom fighter forces captured after a long urban campaign. And so we have helped communism win in South Africa, created a reliable partner in the process, and provided proof that our military reforms are successful. Back home, a lot had happened during the year we were in South Africa. Our reforms had continued, with a significant focus being put on upgrading our air force to the next generation, as it is necessary that we gain air superiority to secure victory. Inspired by the war in Europe, which had ended in the complete restoration of the Soviet Union and the end of NATO, we started expanding our drone usage. Even more significantly, we are about to finish development of our 5th generation fighter, which will feature an AI targeting computer to enhance the pilot's abilities. Some of our research initiatives had also been successes, with Project Flash being partial and Project Nib successful with developing a high-caliber infantry rifle. Having trained up more divisions, enough to fill a whole army group with our motorized and mechanized divisions, divisions, as well as one army of our main battle tank divisions, we stand a lot more ready than before, and thus we dared starting to challenge the PDTO's Asian supremacy with the establishment of the East Asian Defense Initiative. The first to join was Pakistan, eager to get revenge on the Indians. And to further counter their aggressions, we also got joined by the Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka and the Himalayan nation of Nepal. Sadly not Bhutan though, who rejected our invitation. Looking to secure more allies and raise tensions, we started preparing a military intervention into the Myanmar civil war. After 60 days and having found an ally in the north, we sent in 2 armies who quickly swept south, defeating rebel group after rebel group, and as we eventually arrived to Yangon, the former government was also defeated, securing the country for our Socialist Republic of the Union of Myanmar. During this battle, we had reached out to one final ally, the DPRK. Despite their authoritarian communism, we will help them out, and maybe in the process we can start to democratize the nation. But this is not the real reason for our support. No, because having completed our coordinations with the other EADI nations, we stand ready for war. And so we ordered the DPRK to finalize the Korean Revolution, with them crossing the demilitarized zone into the south. But the starting battles were difficult for them, and we had to immediately support our comrades with volunteers. As tensions rose further and a flood of volunteers joined our armed forces to support the communist cause, we started training up more divisions for the Great Asian War that is now inevitable. As we further supported the DPRK, the Japanese signaled an imminent intervention into the Korean conflict, and a 5th Taiwan Strait crisis had also started. Only a few days later, as the scary news of South Korean advances reached us, the Japanese officially joined against the DPRK and invited the false government in the south to the PDTO. And at this point everything reached Mach speed. The enemy forces would advance north, soon reaching the outskirts of Pyongyang, and this prompted our president to order the 4th Army to enter North Korea, just like Mao Zedong had done so many years ago. We were too late to save Pyongyang though, but we would soon stop the enemy advances, and as the first battles between the Japanese and our Chinese forces begun, so did the Great Asian War. Will the Chinese century come into fruition, or will everything we have built up crumble under the pressure of the reactionary PDTO? While the enemy alliance does have a far bigger deployed army than we do, we have advantages in many other areas. The first is that we are actually prepared for this war, unlike at least the Indians, something which allowed us to quickly execute our first war plan to capture the Indian states east of Bangladesh. Because with no real divisions defending the area for some reason, we could quickly capture it, reducing the size of this front by about 25 and freeing up a whole army that will be able to counter any enemy naval invasions. Because our spies are signaling that the PDDO are planning many. Thankfully, our strong navy is mostly keeping naval superiority on our coast, and we've even sunk some enemy ships already. Finally, in the air is maybe our biggest strength, as our air force is the most modern in the world, and in places like eastern India and the South China Sea we are demolishing the PDTO air force with little hardship. On the home front we are also switching to a war economy with little economic trouble too, as our economy had seen such a massive resurgence before the war. But now, as we are closing in on 1 month of war, the real war starts. The PDTO are launching attacks in North Korea, which we respond with by sending over double our current forces, and they are launching an offensive from Southeast Asia, which we will counter with our own. So let Operation After more than a year of war, we are back to having the advantage. It was difficult to defeat all the PDTO's naval invasions, and we had to leave Nepal to have enough troops to defend ourselves, but we've succeeded and inflicted huge casualties on the enemy forces in the process. With our army reforms also being a huge success, as our army and air force are undeniably stronger than our enemies, we stand ready to finish Operation Southern Fury. Starting in Cambodia, our tank force quickly broke through, capturing their capital and most of their other cities, leading to the capitulation of the Cambodian government and army. This opened up for an offensive to Bangkok, something which we of course utilized, and by attacking from the west as well, we confused the enemy enough to be able to achieve our pincer movement and capture the Thai capital. While we let the majority of our army clean up the huge encirclement in northern Thailand, we sent our tanks down south along the slim Malaya Peninsula. After defeating the main army defending this area, we commenced our Malayan offensive with the goal to capture Singapore. Despite the Malaysian army having troops in the area to defend their country, they stood no chance against our modern tanks, so we could quickly sweep southwards, with everything going even faster after passing the mountains in the north of the country. So soon, with Kuala Lumpur and the rest of Malaya captured, we stood at the doorsteps of Singapore. Having succeeded up until this point, the small Singaporean army could do nothing to stop us. And so we have now achieved our first major victory of the war, securing our first primary target and putting all of mainland Southeast Asia under our control. And this frees up a huge number of divisions, most of which we'll send to India. But since we don't really have a huge front with the country, we will send our main armored divisions to Korea to commence Operation Chiang Mai and destroy the false capitalist government of the south. It had to start with destroying the last PDTO naval invasion though, that in Dalian. Despite the huge number of forces, thanks to a long bombing campaign due to our complete air superiority, their forces weren't ready for a full attack from our armored forces, and so the whole invasion was crushed in less than a month. Which means Operation Chiang Mai can commence. With even more caste than in Manchuria, the PDTO forces stood no chance. Soon the forces occupying Pyongyang were encircled and defeated, and we entered Seoul, the capital of the south. From here a race to the south started, just like it had 80 years ago, but this time we helped the DPRK forces to actually finish it and capture Busan. And so another significant victory has been scored, and if you look at the casualties and how many forces the PDTO have left, we can clearly see that they have almost completely lost it. 2 volunteers from the freshly united Union of American People's Council Republics have even been able to advance past Bangladesh in India all alone. But before we go help them to knock out our first major power, it is time to avenge those dead in Xi Jinping's failed invasion of Taiwan. It is time to finally finish the civil war. It is time for one last Taiwan campaign. And for this round, we not only have far more experienced marines, an incredibly strong air force, and almost complete naval superiority after further battles with the United PDTO Navy, but also far more important, the Taiwanese Defense Force has already been completely defeated. So we could simply send our marines over straight into Taipei, capture the capital and march south to the previous landing grounds. On our way, 2 lonely Japanese divisions were easily defeated, but that was about it. After close to 100 years of civil war, the rebellious province fell with less difficulty than invading Luxembourg. And so, with this huge victory complete, we can finally turn against our first major PDTO nation, and the last which we have land borders with, India. Unlike Taiwan, they do have some divisions left, but compared to the start of the war and our 2 armies ready to invade them, it's really nothing. So we assembled our forces and launched Operation Gangaridai. Starting from the east, we broke through immediately and we could simply cruise towards Delhi and the south. Once we approached the capital, we began attacking from Xinjiang as well, opening up a second front and allowing us to easily capture Delhi. During this advance, we had rapidly advanced to the south as well, as our forces could quickly capture Mumbai and Chania, the last 2 cities before the collapse of the Indian government. Now, due to the huge population of India, we decided against occupying it like we have with the rest of the countries. Instead, we let local leaders that will pose no threat against us take over, except for in the regions bordering us of course, and in Pakistan, where we had to defeat the PDTO-loyal government and start the process of restoring the government that has gone in exile after the start of the war. During this grand invasion, great news had reached from Korea, because with only one Korea left, our diplomats started looking into partially integrating the peninsula into China with the establishment of a special administrative region. To our surprise, Kim Jong-un complied and we could start introducing our technocratic democratic socialism in the country, while strengthening our economic and political ties. But back to the war, with half of our primary targets eliminated and just a single secondary left, the war is starting to wrap up. But there is still a long time left, because from now and onwards we will need to naval invade everything. We will start with the Philippines and work our way south to Australia, leaving our main enemy and the hardest to invade, Japan, to the end. So let the invasions begin. And so there remains only one, our arch nemesis and the nation who started the war by intervening in Korea, the state of Japan. Throughout our operations in Oceania, we have prepared for this final battle, mainly by shooting down the last parts of the Japanese Air Force trying to defend their island and planning the last operation, Operation Majestic. We will launch from Ningbo to the Japanese island of Kyushu, and from there liberate Japan from capitalism. So we cracked the Japanese cipher and launched the invasion. With only 2 divisions protecting the port against our 10, we easily landed and secured a safe enough beachhead for us to send in our tank army. While waiting for it to arrive, our marines moved to capture the rest of the Kyushu island, which we could secure as our tanks helped us out in the last few battles. The Japanese army had now assembled defenses on the 2 crossings, but since we know they can't counterattack, we concentrated all our marines on invading Shikoku, which we after a short battle managed to achieve. From this island we attempted to cross over to Osaka and Okayama, but only succeeded with the latter, something which encircled the Japanese forces in Hiroshima, allowing us to fully destroy them and secure a safe landing on the Japanese main island. So from here we quickly drove to Kyoto, encircling and later destroying all the Japanese divisions defending Osaka and opening up the road to Tokyo. Naturally, as we had already reached this far and destroying so many of the Japanese forces, they didn't have much left to stop us, and so the capital soon fell. And as we continued north, destroying division after division in the process, the Japanese government eventually capitulated, ending the war. After years of war, the Great Asian War has ended in a victory for the East Asian Defense Initiative and the complete destruction of the PDTO. We will immediately go to work on restoring civilian governments throughout our liberated nations, painting the East fully red. Most notably was that we assisted the Japanese in reconstructing and helped them establish their own technocratic socialism to finally end the eternal conflict and bring our 2 people together. And here the story ends. Thanks to our new technocratic socialist ways, the Chinese century has become a reality. We are by far the strongest nation in the world, both militarily, economically and politically. But some argue that this century should rather be called the century of socialist rebirth. Because the Soviet Union is back and are currently purging Europe of fascists, and with a socialist America as well, the world's three great powers stand together to bring liberation to the rest of the world. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.